Hey, it's me, Azalea, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Waycrunchy. Today, I'm running down every single book I read in 2020. Everything I read in lockdown, and I actually got a lot of reading done, more than I have since my first child was born. If you're a mom, you know the struggle of trying to read, especially during those early baby years. This year was the year of nonfiction for me. I became very interested in learning more about the people and the world around me and finding new sources of inspiration, because some of my favorite artists and figures throughout history and time periods, I kind of started to feel like my inspirations were running dry and I needed to seek out more information. In the past, I've definitely lended more towards fiction and reading really engaging stories, and I did a little bit of that this year, but really it was the nonfiction that shined for me. I'm going to run down every book I read this year real quick. Then I'm going to go back and tell you more about my favorites. You can find links to all of these titles in the description to this video. Every book I read in 2020, so you can go click on that if you want more information about any of these titles. The first thing I read this year was Bloomland by John Englehart. This one was a fictional piece about a school shooting. The Member of the Wedding by Carson McCullers. The Rat Man of Paris by Paul West. From At Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. Citizen Illegal, which was the only poetry book I read this year. No One Writes to the Colonel and Other Stories by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. Understanding the Borderline Personality. The Shipping News. The Witches, Salem, 1692. Thomas Jefferson Education. Little Fires Everywhere. Who Wrote Frankenstein by Linda Bailey. Season of the Witch, a spellbinding history of witches and other magical folk. Everything That Remains, a memoir by the Minimalists. The World of Edward Gorey by Clifford Ross and Karen Wilkin. Autobiography of a Yogi. The longest book I read, and also tiny bit of a tedious read, was actually one of my most favorites from this year, The Witches. And this is a very detailed yet engaging telling the story of the Salem witch trials, and just really getting into this time period and exploring all the itsy bitsy pieces of the puzzle was really great for me. This is something you hear about from the time you're a little child, and it's something good to dive in to really even help you understand modern day times and the witch hunts and how people get hung up on these crazy conspiracies. And I guess it's human nature, because it's been happening since way back when, thank goodness we're not burning anyone at the stake, but people get shot, there's all sorts. This made me think about the times we're living in now. This made me think about back then. This made me think about human nature. This made me think a lot about culture and society, and not that much about witches, but about people. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard is definitely one of my number one top favorite books I read this year. It is nonfiction, and it is an exploration of a woman exploring and immersing herself in a very knowledgeable way in the nature in my native here of Virginia. Watching muskrats and praying mantis eggs, and she explores everything in such a thoughtful way. It really made me pay more attention to the natural beauty around me, to the insects, to the creatures. It helps you tune in to the minute details of nature, and that's been really helpful, especially during the plague year and the pandemic when we're trapped outside. You don't want to catch the virus from other humans inside buildings. The last book I read this year, closing out my list, was Autobiography of a Yogi. And I picked this up at that sweet little bookshop I vlogged about a handful of videos ago. And, you know, it was a little bit old and it got a little bit worn with me, but it's still making it. And I am a yoga instructor and I have studied yoga, and especially around these parts, yoga is very much only seen as fitness class, stretching. You know, there's a little bit of peace, a little bit of shavasana, a little bit of meditation, but this book barely mentions the asana or the physical postures and talks about the spiritual path and the meditation. And that is something that is very, very needed in our culture to deepen what yoga really is, what yoga really, really is about. And yeah, it's great exercise and great stretching, but especially when I teach, you know, I try to plant seeds, and this has really helped me look at history in India and deepen my awareness of the spiritual practice of yoga. Very good read if you take yoga, if you do yoga, if you teach yoga, if you're interested in yoga and are not immersed in the history and spiritual path of yoga. This is my recommendation for you. It should be mandated reading in teacher training programs. I wish I would have read this when I was training to be a yoga teacher. I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, Understanding the Borderline Personality. I'm going to recommend for anyone who struggles or thinks they might be struggling with a borderline personality disorder. Or if you are a loved one of someone with a borderline personality disorder, this will give you a deeper understanding and give you the tools to better communicate with the borderline personality in your life. I've really loved reading about the issues that are important to me and deepening my exploration into these topics. And minimalism is something that I embrace in my own life, although it looks a little different than other minimalists you may encounter. It's not all black and white and bare bones, but through a basic practice of minimalism in my life and my belongings, I have improved the quality of my life. So I read this Memoir of the Minimalist, a couple of minimalists, they're real popular, you know, poster children for minimalism. This is a good book. It's not my favorite book I ever read, but this is a good book for anyone interested in minimalism and a personal story of how it can change your life. Let's see. I read so much I had to get reading glasses this year, and I'm not mad about it. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to get glasses when you find you really do need them. And I got some cute pairs, and it's a lot of fun. So get your eyes checked if you're an avid reader. Public service announcement. My number one favorite. What was my number one favorite, y'all? I'm going to have to go with Annie Dillard, Pilgrim at Tanker Creek. If I had to recommend one book just as a solid, good read, a little tedious when you're getting into it, hang in there. By the time you get to the end, you're going to find maybe a transformation of your spirit and how you relate with nature. So that's my reading list for 2020. My goal for 2021 is to read more. Do check out the links you can find in the description of this video if you want to find any information, track down titles, authors, any of that. Every book I read in 2020, find it there. And you can find me on Patreon, where there's tons of exclusive content. And you can find me on Instagram, where I update pretty much every single day. I love you guys. Go read a book and tell me what you read this year. Tell me what you read in 2020. Tell me the favorites, because I'm fleshing out my list for 2021 right now.